I just had a question yesterday, and it expanded upon the workshop that I did last week, where we were only allowing the first trade signal in a particular trend direction through. And so now today I thought this would be kind of a good to expand upon that and set up a way so that you can allow maybe 2 trades per direction, or 3 trades per direction, or 4, however many you think your system works best with. And another reason why I wanted to show it is because it uses the signal counter, and I use the if-then programmer node to do this. So I thought, yeah, this would be a good practical exercise in showing you, a way to use those other nodes that aren't commonly shown. So, all right. So with that, let me get through some of these questions and comments in here. So Julie was asking if I could show, do some demonstrations on using the market analyzer. And so Julie, I actually did that a couple of months ago. So let me show you where to find that. Actually, I guess this will be kind of a general way of how you can find workshops. So I'm going to go into the webinar section here. And so you'll see the short list of the most recent workshops. And to see all the recorded workshops, just click on this link right here. And I just want to get to any of the videos here. So if I start playing one of these videos, it'll open up the YouTube player, or at least it should. There we go. And with the YouTube player open, I can click on the YouTube icon, and that'll open up another page that takes me directly to YouTube here. And now that I'm here on YouTube, I can start doing a search. So and let's see, so we want the market. Let's see. And, oh, looks like, let's close that. I have a video playing somewhere. Trying to find where it's at. Where is that video coming from? That's weird. I got something strange going on with my web browser. So I'm going to close down my web browser here. Okay. Let me reopen it. All right. So we'll just go to YouTube directly. Okay. Okay, so if I just do a search for market, let's see, there we go. So there he is, first one on the list there. So using the market analyzer, and let's see, 3 months ago. Yeah, so that sounds about right. So there you go, Julie. So this is probably the best way to find the YouTubes, our recorded workshops here. Just type in BloodHound workshop and then kind of the keyword that you're looking for. All right. All right. Well, with that, looks like I got through all your opening questions there. And so let's get started with today's theme. And then if I have enough time towards the end of the theme, I just wanted to show you something really, really cool I was able to do with Raven. those screens that popped up earlier. So, all right. So today's theme is going to be, allowing a specific number. So you'll be able to change the number of trades per trend direction. Right. So we're expanding upon last week's workshop where we isolated only the first signal in a trend, and so all the additional signals were blocked until the trend changed direction. And I also have a higher time frame chart here. So I'll be using a higher time frame chart to reset when signals in the same direction can occur again. So let's see. So what I'll do is like allow the first 3 signals through. So like I'll allow this one and this one. So these first 3, and then we'll end up blocking this one here until we get a trend direction changed, and that'll be determined by the higher time frame chart here. So yeah, so I'll get more specific as I build the system for you guys. So I already put part of the system together so that I could at least have some signals on the chart to kind of show you something. So this is a very simple system, and I've got a couple solvers on here already. And let me switch over to the Logic tab, and I'll just drop those solvers on the Logic tab and explain each of them one at a time. All right, so let's see. So I decided I'm going to do 3 signals per direction, so I'll just say, call this like 3 per, oops, per, there we go, 3 per direction. So I'm going to take those existing nodes that I have, and you'll see under existing nodes I have 2 different time frames. Right? So every time you add a different time frame or a different chart to your system, right? So right here I have the default chart or time frame, and I have the higher SI Pro Ranko time frame. And so when you go to your existing nodes on the Logic tab, those different charts or time frames will show up here. So I'll work with the default time frame first. Let me just put the price inflection on there. So this one's pretty simple. I did change this, so what I'm doing, well, yeah, so let me explain. First of all, I'm just looking at the closing price. Oops, I double-clicked on that by accident. There we go. We put it back to the closing price. So I'm just looking at the closing price of the bar, and you can see it's marking whenever the bar direction changes, all right, reverses on us. So when it reverses up, we get a long signal, and then when it reverses down, we get a short signal. And let me expand these bars out a little bit. There we go. And also what I did, you'll see that sometimes it has 2 signaling bars in a row. Right? So when it reversed down, we got 2 short signals in a row, then it reversed up, 2 longs. Then it reversed down only for 1 bar, so there was only 1 short signal, and then it reversed up again. And to do that, I just set my look back period to 2. And the reason why I did that, set this to 2, so I want to eliminate these single bar reversals. So the way I can eliminate these single bar reversals is with an additional solver, which is this bar direction solver that I have here. So if I take a look at this bar direction solver, you'll see I'm requiring the number of bars to 2. So that means I have to have 2 bars in the same direction before you get an output. Right, so you can see I have this down bar. There's no short signal on it because there's only one down bar. If we look up here, we can see when I get to the second down bar, then I get a short signal. All right, so that helps eliminate like these single bar reversals here. And I should probably rename this to a 2-bar direction, since that's what it's requiring. So now if I join these together with an AND node, and so there's kind of like the core signal here, just simply looking for, right, so this is just a very simple system, so I can, illustrate the point of how do you, prevent additional trades from happening in the same direction. Right, so we kind of eliminated this 1-bar reversal here. And we also want to eliminate this short because we want to keep our signals in the same direction. So to eliminate this short, I'm going to use this higher time frame. Very simple higher time frame filter that I have here. And what I'm doing is I'm comparing the closing price to a moving average here. And I just want to make sure that the closing price is above our moving average. Very simple. And so if I go to my existing nodes, I need to look at this other chart here, this higher time frame chart, and there's my comparison solver that's looking at that higher time frame chart. And you'll also note that you'll see text above the solver, and so that text is telling you that this solver is on a different chart. Right, so this text is telling you that if we go back to our solver tab, right, the text is telling you it's on this particular time frame here. So it's this solver. And actually, I want to change the name on this. I like to kind of keep the names short, so I usually truncate the word comparison. There we go. Keep the solver a little shorter. So now if we look at what this solver is, what that solver is doing, so we can see we're in an uptrend, and then finally we can see here price closes below that moving average. Right. So also, let me expand this out a little bit. So let me go back to where we were here. So one way that we can eliminate the short signal in this pretty strong uptrend, and it ought to eliminate all these short signals here, is I can just connect this higher time frame filter, connect it up, and there we go. It's stripped out all those short signals there. And if I keep scrolling down, right, and then eventually we get into this downtrend, and we're starting to get some short signals here. Right, until, so hopefully you guys are keeping an eye on the higher time frame chart over here. So then price begins to move back up, and we can see on the higher time frame we're above that white lined moving average, and we get a long signal. All right, so we kind of have our core signal set up here. So now let's work on using the function nodes to eliminate this fourth signal in the same direction. So what I'm going to use is the counting node. Right, so this counting node is probably primarily used, to count incoming signals. But it's fairly generic, so it could be used just to count like a number of bars. If you wanted to say just count 5 bars when 5 bars go by, it can be used for that as well. Based on how you have the resets set up here. So let me walk through this. I'm not going to go through this in detail because there is a workshop on this solver back in February, I believe. So I did workshops on the function nodes in late January and February. So there's a more detailed workshop on the signal node, on the signal counter node. But just to give a quick overview. And so I'm going to have to set the solver up a little bit to help illustrate what these parameters are doing here. So we can see that we're counting up to 3. So this count up to is essentially like the number of signals coming in that it's counting to. And then another critical component of this is the look back period. So it can only count, it can only try and count up to 3 incoming signals only as far back as you specify. So if I set this, let me set this to like 50 bars. And I think that'll do it. Yes. All right. So if you remember these green arrows here, I marked where we're getting long signals from the system on these green arrows. And if we look at BloodHound's output here, let me get rid of this MACD. I'm not actually going to use it. So if we look at the output from the signal counter, right, we can see that on the first up signal here, we started, right, it started to give us an output, and it's 1/3. Right, so since we're counting 3 signals, the output of this signal is going to be 1/3 every time it finds a signal. Right, so on this first bar here, if I scroll over, let me scroll this all the way over. Right, you can see the output is at 1/3. And as I step forward and get to the second signal here, right, so this arrow is where the second signal is, we can see now the counting solver is now, its output is at 2/3 because it's found 2 out of the 3 signals that we're looking for. Right, so it found 2 out of these 3 signals that it's looking for. And if we keep stepping forward, eventually it'll find that third one. There we go. There's the third one. And now the output from the signal counter node is at 1. So it found 3 out of 3 signals, and we get a 1 output from it. And it's only allowed to look for 3 signals on a 50-bar look-back period. So if I shorten this to, say, 10 bars, if I only allow this node to look back 10 bars, it's probably not going to find 3 signals in a row now. Yeah, it's not. So you can see it found our first signal coming in, it found our second signal coming in, and then as we count 10 bars forward, it doesn't find another signal, and you can see the output just drops to 0 because as it's looking back, it's not finding any more signals anymore. until we get to this signal, and then it says, okay, I found one during the 10-bar look back. So you do have to get this set correctly. So I think 50 bars is probably good enough. You know, if I'm not sure, I could set this up to 100 bars. You know, I recommend that you don't go crazy because it does require more calculation time. The more you increase this look back period, you know, the more bars we're forcing NinjaTrader to look back and, you know, recalculate, you know, the formula for this node. So try not to set this too high, you know, but you can, you do want to set it up, you do want to set this look back period a little above the number of bars you actually think you may need. You know, so if you think that your signal, if you think that, you know, it's possible that it may take 100 bars to actually get 3 signals within that 100 bar period, then you might want to set your look back to like 125 bars or 150 bars, just a little bit over, you know, what you think is needed. And then what we're going to do is eventually we'll work on using the reset input connector to reset the counting here of the look back. So all right, so I'm satisfied that we at least have the two, you know, the counting and the look back period set correctly here. So real quickly, so what we're counting is signals. Remember I said you can even use this just to even count just the number of bars. So if I put this to all bars, it's just going to start counting the number of bars that go by. You know, or I could use it in an opposite fashion. I could count how many bars go by where there's no output, where there's no signal. In other words, when you get like if we look at the long side here, right, you could start counting where there's no long output if you wanted to. So, all right. So with that, let's see. You'll see that on these reset here, the only one that's defaulted to true is the reset signal. And I think this is going to, I think this default setting is what we're going to end up using, if I remember. Now, hopefully one thing you've kind of noticed so far is that this is kind of backwards, right? We want to see these signals here, these first 3 signals, right? But actually what we're seeing is that when the 3rd signal occurs, we're just getting a long, we're getting one continuous long signal here, right? So our output, our signals aren't going to come from the counting node. The counting node is used just to, you know, identify when we get to our 3rd signal, you know, or we could change it and just identify when we get to our 2nd signal. So this is going to be used to allow the signals from here, right? Remember, our trade signals are actually coming from the AND node. So we're going to use the signal counter to allow the signals from the AND node to actually come through. So let me actually rename this. I'll call this my signals. Or better yet, I'll call it my trade signals. And so what I'm going to use to allow these trade signals to come through is I'm going to use the programmer node here. So this if-then programmer node. And what the if then is it's kind of like a switch. So the input, right, so the signals or non-signals coming into the if connector is what determines how this switch behaves. Let's see if I can, I haven't messed around with our GoToMeeting very much, but I know it has some drawing tools, so hopefully, let's see. I'm going to see if I can get one of these pens to work. And yeah, it's working. I just need to change the color. Let's see, erase, choose pen color. There we go. All right, put it on a blue here. Not a very straight line. All right, let me erase that. Okay, there we go. So what I'm trying to illustrate is that this output is a switching mechanism, and it's like a light switch in your house to turn the to allow the electricity to flow through to the light bulb. And so this if incoming this if statement determines whether the then connector goes to the output or the else connector goes to the output. So always either the then or the else is always going through to the output. So what it does, what the if then node does, is it's just a pass through. So it takes incoming signals from then and just passes through to the output, or it'll take the else and pipe it straight through to the output. And that's determined by what's coming in to the if connector here. And so actually I had, hold on there, oops. All right, I need to turn my drawing tools off. There we go. Put myself back in normal. So I actually connected the leaders up. I connected them up incorrectly. So what's going to control, what goes through to the output is actually the signal counter. We want the signal counter to control what's going through to the if then. Let's put this like that. And I'll pop this guy up here. And let me erase my little markers. All right, there we go. So the signal counter, right, we built this to control the if then, or to control the if connector, right, which then determines, which one of the other connectors is piped through to the output. So to explain how the if then works. So when you have a signal coming through to the if, and let's take a look at what is coming through. Let's take a look at the signals going through to the if statement. Right, so when we get to our third signal here, right, so when we get to our third signal, our third count of the signals, right, we're getting a long signal that's going in to the if statement. All right, so these long signals are what's being piped into this if statement. And so think of this as true. So think of when you get a long signal, that's true for the long side. And actually, you know what? I think to help illustrate this, I think it helps just to look at one side. So we're going to ignore the short side for now. So let's just focus on how the long side's working. So when we get to this signal here, when we get to this point where we have a signal, that will take the then connector and pipe it to the output. When there is no signal, so this whole period here, when there is no signal, the else is being piped to the output. So knowing that, so in other words, think of it as when there is no signal, think of that as false. That's a false kind of statement, and when we do have a signal, that's a true statement. So when we have a signal coming in and it's true, then anything connected to the then goes piped out to the output. And when it's false, the else is piped through to the output. So we can see here that we want our signals to be piped through when it's false. Right? So kind of note that the signal counter is kind of identifying when we do not want signals coming through. Right? But also hopefully you noticed that when on this third signal, right, it's marking this third signal, but we do want the third signal to come through. So what we have to do is actually bump this up by 1. So we want to see our first 3 signals to come through, and this fourth signal, remember this X here identifies where the fourth signal was, and we want this fourth signal to be blocked. So what we're going to do is we need to increment this by 1. Oops, so I need to set it to 4. And so now we have our first, second, and third signal coming in, and there's no signal from the signal counter. So this is a false statement. So we want to use the else connector here. So we want to take our trade signals, connect it to the else, and that's going to be coming through to the output. And so there's our first 3 signals, and this fourth one is blocked. Right, so there's kind of like a little bit of reverse logic going on here. So the signal counter is identifying this fourth signal, and when it does generate this fourth trade signal, I should say this fourth trade signal, the signal counter is identifying that fourth trade signal by outputting a signal from the signal counter. And so our first 3 trade signals are in this area where there is no signal from the counter node. And so that's a false, you think of that as a false statement. And so that's why we're using the else. So now that we kind of have the core system connected up, all we have to do now is just, we can just change the number of count up to. So if I only wanted to see the first 2 signals, I could change this to 3, because you take the number of signals you want to see plus 1, so we're getting 3. And so now, right, so now we're only seeing the first 2 long signals, and it's blocking the third and the fourth one. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up the reset here, and I'll show you why here in just a moment. Let me get the chart prepared here. Here we go. So what I'm going to do, say like, you know, in our system, you know, I set this all up to only work in this one single trend, right? I didn't scan through the chart to see if we need more than 50 bars in our look back period. So I'm just going to say, you know, for demonstration purposes that, you know, let's just say we needed actually 200 bars in our look back period. I think 200 bars will do it. Okay. Yeah, so remember we had this long signal over here, and now it's disappeared. And that's because I incremented the look back period to 200 bars. So let me change that again, because I want to mark that long signal there. And I should probably mark that short signal. And let me mark the exact bar of this fourth long signal. There we go. All right, so back to this. Let me bump this up to 200 bars. So this is going to be pretty common, right? So you're going to have to, you know, knock this 200 bar or this look back period up, and what will happen is that you'll get this short downtrend and then another uptrend. And with the look back period, you know, set as high as needed, it's going to block, you know, the first or second long signal as the trend changes direction again. So we're going to have to use this reset connector so that we're not blocking this long signal here as the market ends up going back up in a long direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this downtrend to reset the counter node. We'll use this downtrend to reset the counter node. And what I'm actually going to use is I'm going to use the higher time frame. So when the closing price crosses below our moving average, right, that's kind of saying that, hey, the higher time frame is now in a kind of a short bias. Right, so what we're looking at now is the higher time frame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these short signals here from the higher time frame to reset our counter node to allow for this long signal here. So the counter node is helping to, you know, block this fourth signal, and then we get a down trend direction that will reset the counter node and allow for this second uptrend and allow the signal to come through on this new uptrend here. So it's pretty simple to do. I just need to I can just simply take the signal coming out of this comparison solver, connect it into the reset, and if we take a look at our reset parameters here, right, we are using the reset connector, so we are interested in this reset signal, or at least we're interested in these parameters that start with the reset, right? Start with the word reset. The parameters that start with the word input is referring to the input connector. but we're actually using the reset connector to reset the signal counter. And I'm actually using a reset in the opposite direction, or I'm using a reset opposite signal. Right, this short signal is the opposite of the long signal. So we're blocking long signals here, and so I'm going to use the opposite signal, which would be a short signal, to reset the counter node. So actually I do need to change my parameters here. So I need to turn this off, because if I use this would actually be using a long signal to reset the counter, not a short signal. So I need to turn this off and go find the reset opposite signal and turn that on. And now if I connect this up, it should all be working. Yeah, there we go. So we have our first two signals, and yeah, remember I changed this so that we're only allowing the first two signals to come through. We're blocking the third and the fourth, and then our first short signal comes through, and then once again our first long signal comes through as the trend changes. So if I simply wanted to allow this third signal to come through, I just have to change our count up to signals, just bump it up by 1. And now as I look on the chart, so there's our third one, and then now we're blocking that fourth one there. All right, so I see there's a bunch of comments coming through. So Sally is asking, are these recorded? Yes, Sally. Actually, I showed you that at the beginning. I showed you where the recordings were at the beginning, and I'll show you. I'll bring that web page back up again. So let me get through some of these other questions first. See if anything pertains to what I just worked on. So give me a moment just to read these. Let's see, so Jeff is asking if I want to calculate a bias on conditions like, let's see, YH, YL, YH. You know, Jeff, I'm not sure what you mean by YH or YL. I'm assuming your H means high and your L means low, but I'm not sure what you mean by the Y. Oh, okay. Yesterday. All right, so Jeff is asking, if I want to calculate a bias on conditions like yesterday's high, yesterday's low, should I use a signal counter to compute the sum, not the sum logic? Jeff, I need a little more detailed explanation on that question. This sounds like a very detailed kind of question. So Jeff, I would ask if you could send that in as an email, because I know it's kind of hard to write out a full question during these workshops. So if you could send in a little more detailed explanation of your question in an email, send that in to support@sharkindicators.com. I'll help you out with that. Or if you think you can write it up before this ends, once you take time to write your question up in Notepad, and then you can paste it into the questions here, and I'll try and see if I can answer that at the end of this workshop. Okay, so Sandy is asking, when setting the look back, when a higher time frame solver is used, how does it count? All right, so when setting the look back, when a higher time frame solver is used, how does it work? It works the same. So so this look back period, so if you are looking back on, say, this higher time frame solver, so let me disconnect that. So if we have basically bars or signals from this higher time frame coming into the input, so it's going to be this look back period. It's going to be looking back the number of bars on this chart. So whatever chart this solver is set onto, right? Every chart has a number of bars, so it'll be looking back on the number of bars on this higher time frame. So I hope you. Okay, so I already answered your question. All right. Thank you, Sandy. Let's see. So Jeff is asking, how does the signal counter compare to the additive logic? Jeff, there is no compare. They don't compare at all. They're just totally two different functions. So, as this name implies, the signal counter is counting signals, whereas the additive node is like what it says. It's adding the values of the signals together. It's literally, so if I take a bunch of solvers and whatnot and plug it in here, it is literally adding the output value of these three incoming leaders. It's taking whatever the value is, and it's just adding them together and giving you an output. Now keep in mind the outputs never exceed 1. So if one of these leaders coming in has a signal of 1, has a value of 1, then you already maxed out the additive node. And so that's where these sliders come in play here, is you can use the sliders to essentially knock down the values of each of the solvers coming in. So since I have three connections coming in here, probably most commonly I'd want to set my sliders down to 1/3 for each of these connections coming in. So each one is weighted equally, and I knocked them down to 1/3. And so what that would do is it would require each of these connections coming in to have a value of 1, right? It would require you to have this value of 1 here. Oops. So I'd have to have a value of 1 on each of these solvers coming in here. And then the sliders would knock that down to 1/3 each, and so 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 1 on your output. So the counter is counting, and the additive is literally adding. So there is a tutorial video on this logic node in the tutorial section of the website. So Jeff, that can kind of fill you in on more, give you more detail on how this additive works. Yes, so correct, Jeff. you need to divide by the number of solvers. That's correct. All right, so continuing on to go through some of these questions here. All right, so Daniel is digging this stuff. Good. And let's see, Dan is asking, how do you test your logic? Well, Dan, ultimately the way you test your logic is, you just look at the output on the chart and determine if your logic is correct. So let me kind of put this back in order again. I kind of pulled it apart to give a little demo there. So let's put this back in order. And that's right, I need to put this back. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, so Dan asks a really good question. When you start getting into a system, that starts getting into, a couple of different function nodes and some logic nodes, and you're trying to work it out, hopefully you kind of notice that as I was building this out, I was connecting stuff straight up to the result node, so I can see what this signals, what this node's output is. And a lot of times what I do, the reason why I love this toolbar here is because I can use this toolbar, as I had already done, to mark signals, from certain output points on my chart, right? So I remember that these green arrows here and this red arrow, this green arrow, those are signals that were coming from this output connector right here, from this AND node. All right, so when I connect it straight up, right, you can see that the long signals are matching up with my arrows. So that way, when I'm looking at the counter node, I still know where the signals, where the output from the AND node is on my chart. And sometimes, like from when I'm wanting to know when a signal is coming from a function node, like this counter node, I'll use like a drawing box, and I'll mark, I'll mark a place on the chart with this drawing box. So that way, if if I need to, for some reason, look at this higher time frame node here, like for example, I probably should be marking this guy really. So I can use this rectangle box, and I'll just change the way it looks. I'll change it solid, make it red, and make that red, call it good. So then if I look at something different, so now when I'm looking at my chart with all these little drawing tools or drawing objects on my chart, I can see that hey, at this period on the chart, that's when the higher time frame is giving me a short signal here. And so I know that this short signal from the higher time frame solver should be resetting my counter node and allowing for this next long signal to occur. So Dan, that's kind of how I go through and test my logic out. All right, next one here. Gary is saying, if you are trying to trade the signals in real time, do you need to have any bar value in the look back period? see, do you need to have any bar value in the look back period? So yes, in order, I guess, I think I understand what you're asking, Gary. So yeah, I mean, to get this to work in real time on live data, I mean, you have to have this system set up exactly like this. I mean, if I change this look back period, to 10 bars, well, it's not going to function the same way anymore in real time. It's going to, change the whole behavior of this system. So if I change this to, well, let me just change it to 20 bars. And you'll see, historically, it's going to change the behavior of this. And just got to give this a moment to update itself. Oh, actually, no, that's right. It did update. Right, so when I changed, as soon as I changed this to 20, right, you can see it's not blocking this fourth signal anymore. So in real time, it's going to change the behavior of your signals coming in, because it's only going to look back 20 bars to try and find, 3 signals, or actually 4 signals, to block the 4th, 5th, and 6th signal if those occur. So, whatever you kind of see in historical is what you're going to expect to see running forward in real time. So yeah, like, look at all these long signals here. Let's kind of take a look at this. So first thing I'm interested in is, what is the higher time frame telling me where we had all these signals? And I go, oh, look there, we did actually have a short signal there. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy and paste that and slide it over here. And so look, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signals here in a row. And then we actually did get a little short trend on the higher time frame to reset and allow this long signal here through. And so since I changed this look back to 20 bars, it basically messed up the whole system. It's not enough look back bars for this to work in this in this recent trend right here. And that's what's going to happen in real time. So let me change that back to 200 bars. And there we go. So now that fixed it. So now we only have 3 signals here, and it blocked that 4th and 5th signal. All right, so Gary, I hope I answered your question. Let's see. Jeff has a bunch of comments here. All right, good. So Jeff managed to fire off an email to me, and I haven't seen it come in yet, Jeff. Let me refresh my email here. And no, I haven't seen it come in yet. Sorry about that. It's funny, sometimes Gmail is instantaneous, and sometimes you gotta wait a couple minutes. So Jeff is asking, which indicator has the drawing menu? Yeah, so I usually show this off quite a bit quite often. It seems like once a month I'm showing somebody what this is. And this indicator is available on NinjaTrader's download area and Big Mike's download area, and it is called the Toolbar Shortcut. So just search the indicator section, the download indicator section of NinjaTrader or Big Mike's, and just search for Toolbar Shortcut, and you'll find it. It's awesome. And so Dan is asking, how about market replay? Yeah. Basically, Dan, any kind of data feed that you might have. So let me close this out. Oh, and look at that. I forgot to give this a name. Now let me name my BloodHound file here. So today's the 25th already. All right, name it. There we go. So Dan, essentially NinjaTrader kind of treats all of its connections as kind of the same, as universal. It doesn't really discriminate between actual live market data or a market replay connection or even simulated data. It tries to treat all of these different types of connection as equal, as the same, so that way when you do kind of backtest your stuff, that you'll get as realistic of live trading conditions as if you were using a live data feed. So this market replay, is designed to try and work as realistically as possible as a live data feed, and the same with the simulated data feed. So you should get, theoretically, you should get the same results regardless of which data feed you're using. At least that's, that's what NinjaTrader was trying to do. All right, so there's still a bunch more questions here to go through. And so Dan's kind of missed some of this, and he's asking if this is going to go up on YouTube, and you bet, of course, all of these are recorded, and they all get posted up onto YouTube and on our website. So let me get back to Sally's question. She's asking if this is recorded, and they sure are. And let me bring up our website again. So let me go back to Shark Indicators. So to find the recorded workshops, you can go to Support, Learn BloodHound, and you'll see the training workshops right here. All right, and then you'll see this is like a quick list of the most recent 8, I believe, or maybe it's the most recent 10. And then you'll see if you hover your mouse over this recorded webinars, this actually is a link. And this takes you into the list of all the workshops. And they're organized by month. Right? So they're organized by date and month. So the oldest workshop videos are down here at the bottom. So, and what you see on the web page is the most current month, the current month that we're in. So we're in October, so you're going to see the recorded workshops for October here. And typically I get these up on Saturday evening or sometimes Sunday evening. And sometimes they always show up on our YouTube channel first, right? So Jeremy has a YouTube channel here, right? So you can click on, so I'm on the YouTube website here. So when I clicked on Jeremy's name, it brought up our YouTube channel, and you can just look through YouTube as well to find all the recorded workshops. So all right, I think we're just about done here. So Dan is asking, does this work on time and sales? No, Dan, I don't think NinjaTrader created any way to I don't know, to what modify the time and sales. Let's see, that's pull that up, and I need to connect here. So I don't know of any way to add anything to the time and sales. To be honest, I have not really used it very much. I did use it a little bit, gosh, probably 5 years ago when I first got NinjaTrader. I thought I'd take a look at this tool and see if looking at volume coming through would help me in any way. And there we go. See, it's been such a long time. Let's take a look at oil coming through here. And yeah, see, so the only columns we have are just time, price, volume, and block. There's no indicator column that you can add to it. So no, there's no way that you can apply indicators to the time and sales, at least not that I know of. And of course, this just changes the colors, the color appearance and everything. So yep. So that's a no-go, Dan. All right, let's see. Jeff is asking, so Jeff is saying he has an older version of the toolbar. Jeff, as far as I know, there's only one version out there. I don't think it's ever been updated. So, and Dan is asking about Zenfire. So Dan, in my experience, Zenfire has been just fine. It was great. I used to have Zenfire when I first got started. So, yeah, their data feed was pretty good. I never had any problems with it. All right, Sally's asking. Sally's asking, any chance of receiving this template? Yeah, you bet, Sally. How about if you, I kind of prefer that I don't post a lot of templates up on the website unless they get really, really complex. When there's only a few solvers, per template, then I tend not to post them, because I'd rather you guys build it yourself so you get that experience of building stuff and working with the interface and everything. But if so if I don't post one, if you send me an email and tell me the date, because as you can see, I put the date in the file name, so that's how I can find it. Tell me the date of the workshop, and just ask me in an email for that file, and I'd be glad to email it to you guys. Okay, well, I think that takes care of it. These are just some comments to my answers. So I think we got through all of this. So great. The Work Friday is over, so you guys go enjoy the rest of the day and have a good weekend. And I hope to see you guys next Friday.